That is right. We are live slightly later than we planned, but it is a Thursday, and it is the Fantasy Sanctuary Best Ball Show. Myself and Tyler here once again. Tyler, it feels like the next month's going to go really quickly before the drafts are done. And it feels like we're kind of in this lull. Free agencies happened, and now there'll be some more signings. Juwan Jennings is out there, Deebo Samuel's out there. There's a few other names that are kind of fantasy relevant, but for the most part, it feels like unless there's some kind of big rookie news or a trade, the ADP's kind of set. How are you feeling about the boards at the minute? Do you feel quite confident in where you're taking your stands?
Yeah, I mean, where I kind of feel 100 or so drafts deep, like a true sicko, is that I probably have, it's probably time to start letting loose a little bit of the stands outside of I think there's only, I'll say it, I feel a little too comfortable with things because ADPs are changing right now. We still have some late risers that we'll talk through here with some of these late trades, and then some of the rookie price FUD coming in for the rookie receivers that are falling, as well as just a couple of, I think, potential boredom or ranks adjustments, maybe a mixture of the two that are leading to quarterbacks like Hurts and maybe Caleb Williams at times falling like a full round past ADP in these half point and full PPR drafts, non-superflex. So a couple of odd things happening where the market's getting a little, we're still seeing some excitement about some of these rookie prices, some worry about the other rookies. And then, just quarterback fever pushing up some of the later guys up like 3 rounds, but then a couple of the earlier guys falling a little bit. So there's some odd things going on late here in the ADP. And I think what I want to do is I want to be flexible to some of the prices adjusting, because ultimately there's going to be so much chaos. There's going to be so much that changes between now and the draft, and then even camp, and then 6 months into the season. So I think at this point, be flexible to how the boards are changing, and know that chaos cuts both ways. And I think the only stand I'm going to keep maintaining is that the huge health question marks that I feel very uneasy about, I'm just not taking any of them right now. And so far that is feeling really good. And I always regret giving in a little bit towards the end. And this year I'm just saying no. And that's the only thing I'm sticking with. And other than that, be like water in these drafts.
Yeah, I'm obviously less than 100 drafts in myself. I think I'm up to 8 drafts in the FFPC Superflex at the minute, and a bunch of Best Ball Europe drafts, and the ones that we've been doing. So, I've not quite hit that point where my stands are as solidified as you, but I think that there's definitely situations which are fluid, situations which feel like people haven't quite adjusted enough. And then you get little bits of news like this week, the Jaylen Waddle trade. Mike in the chat asking, do you believe Malik Washington is an acceptable 20th round pick? I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that if the Broncos don't go out and draft at least one first round wide receiver when BBM opens up in 6 weeks time, 5 weeks time, then Malik Washington is probably going to be around 15 pick, if not higher. I know Malik Washington hasn't exactly shown a lot, but Malik Washington is exactly the kind of player who slappies will get behind.
You're right. Yeah, I hope he's around 14 pick, Tom. Anytime you can get a worse version of Marquez Callaway, I totally urge them to do it. And you said Broncos. I know you meant Dolphins.
Sorry, yes.
No, yeah, but I just think ultimately shoot higher. You're allowed to have higher aspirations despite the system beating you down as a human day in and day out to lower your expectations. But I want to say that I think it's good to have someone. I'll say that the thing I fight every year with a lot of volume is getting a little too robotic and a little too comfy. So I'm gonna have to require a hard reset at some point. And I know that taking a week or two off of drafting helps kind of refresh the mindset, refresh the feel, but then you lose a little bit of the pulse of the drafts. But I think that's quick to pick back up, quite frankly. So, I think as we go down here into the home stretch, I'm going to lean on you to kind of have that, like, fresh eyes heat check as someone that's, not as deep down in the weeds as much, because ultimately this is still a macro game where some of the simplicities do help us navigate through a lot of the noise.
Yeah, and it's definitely tricky to pull back from that sometimes. I mean, the one thing with Malik Washington that I think is kind of worth saying is the one big lesson I remember in 2022, I think it was Darnell Mooney for the Bears, where it was like, who else is going to catch the ball? Darnell Mooney has to catch the ball, and he'd shown a reasonable amount of talent the previous season, and then we lost pretty much everyone, and it was like Darnell Mooney, Equinemius St. Brown. I can't even remember who else, and I'm fairly sure he didn't play the whole season. He missed a few games, but I'm fairly sure he didn't even get to 500 receiving yards that year. But he was like round 4, round 5, round 6, definitely in that kind of territory. And obviously Malik Washington isn't going to get pushed that high. But the one argument that I've tried to always not let myself buy into is if he doesn't catch it, who will? Because quite often that can bring you down a trap of this guy just isn't that talented, and the team don't really care about how talented their top receiver is. But I mean, let's talk about the Jaylen Waddle side of it, because going to the Broncos, obviously Bo Nix isn't a perfect quarterback, isn't necessarily a very good quarterback. Like, he does certain things very well, and then there are definite gaps in his game. Cortland Sutton, the wrong side of 30, definitely going to be in that kind of like age cliff where Dwayne McFarland, friend of the channel, has talked about wide receivers. When it hits them, it hits pretty hard. Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, these are all guys who have talent, but not necessarily elite skills. They're just more role players, I think. But Jaylen Waddle, when the trade happened, having done more drafts than myself probably this week, what was your instinct on where you wanted him to go in drafts?
Yeah, so I have mixed feelings about it. And I think I want to just shout out Jacob Sanderson, who fantastic writer, recently full-time now. There are better things to do with your time than become a lawyer, many are saying. And so I have hesitation, and I'm aware that one of my blind spots is like players I've long had skepticism with, and Waddle's one of those guys where I'm not as sold that like the underlying metrics tell the same story that we see during the week. And so it's like to me he's kind of like a supersized Wandale, in that we know he's a strong target earner, we know he'll get peppered, but that doesn't make him like elite, even if it looks really good. So I have a hard time. So I'm stuck between going away from Malik Will. And I want to say the Waddle thing is where you mentioned not buying into traps. We have to remember that like very, very like outlier bad offenses will be destitute for fantasy points. Like, first and foremost, like I'm not going bargain bin hunting a ton for the Dolphins, the Browns. Like, I expect those offenses to be very bad, very low volume, and they would have to be outlier explosive or condensed to make players worthwhile, even in best ball, outside of like a couple of late round dart throws. And so Waddle leaving a situation with what I expect to be, and I think every fantasy person expects to be, a lower efficiency or at minimum a lower volume pass offense. Everything they've done suggests, leaning into Malik Willis's mobility, his explosive mobility. I don't expect this team to run a lot of, 3 wide receiver sets, given their depth and given, their talk about like being run focused, maintaining Achane. We'll see if that happens. But like, when a team is bad, they usually kind of like lean into the run, simplify things, and are bad. And so Waddle leaving that situation is unequivocally good for his fantasy outlook. It's frustrating that he's going to an offense that, in an offensive mind, that we want players from that offense. But in the last 7 years, we've had a really hard time knowing exactly which of those players week in and week out, or season in, season out, are going to get that work, because Peyton just will rotate guys and use guys. And so, like, do I think Waddle on paper is the strongest target earner and the strongest bet for getting concentration? Sure. Do we know that Peyton will shove it down our throat, that he doesn't care about that week in and week out? Absolutely. And so the brain says, on paper, move him into like the third round, 3-4 turn, easily above Garrett Wilson, because the pass volume and pass efficiency will be far better on Denver alone systemically. And if Sutton continues to fall off a cliff, which, 1.73 yards per route run last year, first downs per route run, a really, really good signal for efficiency and talent, 35th in the league last year. We saw Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant, who were middling talents, really eat into his work. So it's like he could continue to fall down. Waddle could easily be that guy. But at the same time, Waddle's needed like hyper concentration and a very good scheme. And, there's some of those elements here and there's some of the elements that are not. Denver sounds like they're going to keep adding weapons to this rookie contract quarterback team. And so I want to middle it and say it's an improvement for him. He's definitely better in best ball because of the uncertainty of when he'll hit. But because of a floor of Sean Payton doesn't care and is going to be weird, he's going to funnel a ton of targets to the running backs. I'm not going to forget that because, and as Jacob Sanderson wrote, there's a chance that Waddle doesn't get above like an 80% route and snap share. And all of a sudden he's not hitting the ceiling that like on paper we'd expect to see. So I want to middle it with excitement, but also know that like the situation improved, but it's also going to be a little volatile.
Yeah, so when I went to adjust my rankings, I put my first set of rankings out. I think it was last weekend, and I went to look at it. I was like, right, this initially feels like it's probably a slight bump for Jaylen Waddle because of volume. And then I had him kind of around 53rd, 55 or so overall. And it was like, okay, well, actually, I'm not sure I'm really going to bump that because, as you mentioned, the volume is probably going to be okay. The situation though with Courtland Sutton's been pretty decent touchdown bet over the last few years. And Jaylen Waddle, I think, yes, he's probably going to get more in the screen game. We know Sean Payton loves to rely on that. And that would be beneficial because last year he had a career high 13.1 average depth of target or something. And that saw him hit his lowest career yards after the catch. Like he just wasn't getting any kind of yak because for the first time ever, they were pushing the ball further downfield to him. And because the way that Tua floats a ball is you're normally running back towards the ball, it's quite hard to create yards after the catch when you've had to turn around and come back to it. Obviously, I'm being perhaps a little hyperbolic with that.
Tua, the most accurate and best deep thrower in the league, that same Tua? We talking about the same player, Tom?
I just think that, yeah, Waddle's probably going to be absolutely fine, as you say. It's like if I finish draft season with, 8 to 10% of Waddle, I'd assume that it was based on the players around him. I didn't necessarily feel particularly strongly about either. So how I feel about Jaylen Waddle and his ADP is probably going to be dictated by the next couple of months and what happens in that kind of range of drafts as much as anything. And of course, we'll see how that plays out. But on the whole, I like it. I like the fact that they invested good draft capital into it. I like the fact that Jaylen Waddle gets to go play with a quarterback who I feel a little more confident in than Malik Willis. Like, I'm not hating on Malik Willis, but Malik Willis, it's an absolute tiny sample size what we've got of him. And yes, he liked to absolutely push the ball downfield, had a massive big-time throw rate of like 5.6% or something when he has dropped back. But it's not really enough. But just moving slightly away from Jaylen Waddle, like we've seen a fair bit of backup quarterback movement, and we are going to jump into a draft in a few minutes. But the one that kind of really stood out was what happened with Philly, Andy Dalton being traded to the Eagles this week, and the potential knock-on of Tanner McKee, which I know has been a hot topic in our Discord for a little while. There are some people who believe in him. I've been a bit of a hater. But do you believe that there are any kind of places left that any of the backups could end up going to where they could be really fantasy relevant? I mean, we've seen for like the last 3 seasons now, over 60 QBs per year pretty much are making starts. Do you think that he's worth that kind of Copium, hopium?
I'm gonna have to say no, because like we've seen nothing out of him in like real action in real like ways, and it seems like the smoke is more this feels like because Mac Jones isn't available, we are now gonna, as like the media industry, hear some whispers about some backups moving places just to have some like not depressingly sad QB competition in camp with some of like very worrisome, questionable QB rooms. And we've seen really bad quarterback play when injuries hit the fan. We know that like the depth is pretty poor, but like, do I have visions of grandeur of Tanner McKee being a viable fantasy starter in like at all? No. And if he is, it's purely in like he's like, I'll say like the one outcome where I would have said, sure, maybe is, a team like Minnesota, where it's like, everybody's competing. Kyler's obviously like the likeliest to hit, but they're looking for any answer beyond this year. And the weapons in the system, fantastic. If Tanner McKee's on the move, leaving a roster like Philly doesn't feel very good, even if it's been schematically disappointing year over year. I mean, to me, it's going to a worse team with a worse offense. The only backup quarterback that we heard early smoke about a lot, and I think could be fantasy viable because he's been fantasy viable and sneaky, decently efficient in like an Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco way, is Tyson Bagent, who hasn't been dealt yet. And because teams, it doesn't make sense to trade away viable, cheap backup quarterbacks like Mac Jones sitting. And so it's like, if it happens, it's because a team gets desperate in the draft, and he's part of a package. He goes in to compete, but like we've seen nothing that indicate. And the best indication of future performance is past performance. We've seen nothing that suggests he's a real NFL quarterback, let alone a good one, let alone one that, like, fantasy quarterbacks have to be either hyper efficient in the pass game with a lot of volume, hitting touchdowns, hitting big plays, or you have the Konami code with the running game. We have no indication of either of those, so I struggle to see the upside, except for he's just much better than we think, and we're not seeing it till now.
Well, sticking with our theory then, like talking about like backup QBs with the Konami code, Justin Fields to the Chiefs. Obviously, despite what the insiders tell us, that Patrick Mahomes is superhuman and will absolutely be ready for the start of the season because he's just built different. You've drafted 100 teams. People have getting close to max in this contest, even with a month to go. Do you think there's any kind of argument for drafting Justin Fields at this point? Is Justin Fields the perfect quarterback to add into a 3 QB build if you're taking Fernando Mendoza, who we are still hearing rumors about that the Raiders might want to bring in Kirk Cousins, for instance, to start the season to ease some pressure, whether that's bullshit or not? Is it worth taking Justin Fields at this point?
I think another trap I think drafters get stuck with is early season production. We see this all the time. I'll use a very good example. Last year, people were drafting Russell Wilson even after Jackson Dart because, well, what if he starts all season with the rookie quarterback in town? And what if he starts just 3 to 6 games? Like, that's points. The Sims will tell you quarterback points matter a lot, especially in the last rounds. So if I'm being extremely specific, I'd say any potential missed time with Mahomes, with Fields' ability, makes him draftable potentially, yes. Quarterback, if we're saying quarterback points matter no matter when they come, sure. But if we're being honest that all the money in these contests, unless you're playing week 1 contests or whether you're playing season long, the finals is what matters. And Justin Fields is one of the worst bets outside of injury luck to start week 17. And guess what? If you told me Mahomes was going to miss the finals, you can't tell me there's more than 50% likelihood Justin Fields is the starter week 17, because Justin Fields is the type of guy that gets benched all the time because of the negative plays that include sacks and interceptions. So, and we know that there's viable guys like Flacco and Cousins on the street that
I think the only way Justin Fields starts week 17 is if the Chiefs have cruised to the number 1 seed and they are resting so many starters that the idea of even stacking them up, I mean, you might as well take him completely skinny at that point.
Yeah. So I'd have to say that I think taking backup quarterbacks in these last rounds is probably a better click than it's given credit for. We see that in superflex leagues where and even not in superflex, backup quarterbacks will start. We don't know which ones. Try to take the ones that have proven fantasy. They have like fantasy spikes, but also have staying power. Guys who will get multiple games to let the starter come, even when the starter's healthy. To like, again, your Mac Joneses, your Flaccos, guys who they have the trust of the coach to like start several games and put up some good fantasy stats, get their teams a couple wins. Those guys, your Mariotas, your Flaccos, your Mac Jones, etc. There's value in taking backup quarterbacks in these contests because starters could miss time late in the season. Starters could go down for the full season and they're low drafted. Those are good bets. Fields is the type of bet where I'm not comfortable taking him because he's one of the three, not all three of the check boxes. And so to answer like the Tanner McKee and all, I take the guys that have proven they'll get some trust, they'll get some run, and they'll put up some points. Because at the end of the day, if you're taking zeros, well, quarterbacks do score a lot of points, and having a low-owned backup in the finals is pretty good leverage outside of like the running back with 2% likelihood to start and matter at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think I'd rather take the backup quarterbacks on the bad teams, the ones who are going to have the quarterback turmoil. Last year this was Tyler Shook and Spencer Rattler. Like, the turmoil there was easy to see coming, and it was easy to see that there was a plan for it. Whereas, like here, as you mentioned, with week 17, you really need to be working on something else for week 17, and just saying the beginning of the season might be sketchy, where that's like you've gone Kyler Murray, Fernando Mendoza, and then you're looking for Justin Fields. But even then, it's not incredible.
Yeah. I think a lot of people focus on upside or likelihood, and realistically, it's a combo of both. And we're kind of bad at assessing the likelihood. We're kind of bad at assessing the upside, but a marriage of those two things. Like you want to hit the sweet spot of the most likelihood you can get plus the ceiling you can get. And then those I think those are viably the good clicks, because what benefits from chaos, and then what's the likelihood that it benefits from chaos in a big way for a long period of time. And those are the picks you typically want to focus on, quite frankly. So, I think it's, and when we don't know a lot, when there still are a bunch of, backup quarterback jobs up for grabs, a couple of guys on the street that have proven that their teams are interested, I think those are worthwhile clicks, especially just from an ownership standpoint. Because we have several quarterbacks coming off of injuries that we don't know how their health is going to be, but we've seen teams more than ever in this era willing to just kind of churn and rotate guys and not just stick with whoever. In this, like, I think Wentz is a decent dart, because if Kyler struggles, we know Wentz is a favorite with the coaching staff, has gotten run. All of a sudden, it does feel like JJ McCarthy's potentially in like an Anthony Richardson situation where like the coaching staff's not beholden to the GM. He's not ingratiated himself to the team, and the team is willing to just kind of like roll the dice and see what else is there, potentially move him for someone that wants to take up the arm. So, again, leverage is fine, but I do think Kyler has a little bit of bench risk now with a guy like Wentz being, I would feel better about Kyler starting all season if it was just him and JJ McCarthy.
So, well, does the addition of Wentz make you feel like Greg Rosenthal of NFL Daily, somebody like when it comes to real ball is one of my favorites. And he raised this point a couple of weeks back when there were some whispers around Carson Wentz going to Minnesota. And he was sort of talking about, well, he said that he was prepared to bet that JJ McCarthy wouldn't be on the Vikings roster by the time the season starts. Now, I'm not suggesting Greg is never wrong or anything, but Greg's a smart guy. He wouldn't be saying, he's obviously quite connected, has various insights on his show, people like Jordan Rodriguez, Ian Rappaport, all that. So do you think that there's a world where that happens? And if so, who do you think is trading for JJ McCarthy?
I mean, teams that I would say first and foremost, teams that are aggressive trading, teams that are aggressive rotating quarterbacks, and teams that try to like mine quarterbacks in the future.
So it's
Minnesota's one of those. The Rams are kind of one of those. The Eagles are one of those. So if the Eagles decide to, if they do end up moving Tanner McKee, or guess what, they could just cut Tanner McKee, and then they just go and trade a 5th-round pick for JJ McCarthy and say, can we Mitch Trubisky this bitch? Buffalo tends to kind of do that, and you get like the Buffalo sheen on bad quarterbacks. And obviously a team like the Jets where you have no real future quarterback on the team right now. Why not roll the dice and do the damn thing? What if you get lucky with a, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold turnaround?
Well, that's it. I put it out on Twitter. I don't think it'd cost more than a 4th as a conditional 3rd, and I think the Vikings would happily take a 4th from right now. Tyler, we're a few picks away, picking out of 5 hole, which feels like the same spot. We've drafted a few of these, but tonight we are drafting with Best Ball Overlay. If people haven't seen the message down below, you can get yourself 25% off using the promo code TFS. Tyler, this is the first time I'm seeing all of your exposures on this. Is there anything that I should be scared of?
I feel naked, Tom. My soul is laid bare. There is no lying. I found out today I've not drafted RJ Harvey yet. JSN at 5. That sound good to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, your first round exposures, Puka, CMC, CD Lamb, all down at kind of like 4%. Is that just the way the draft boards have flowed to you, or the guys you're not really high on?
No, I'm getting a ton of 5, 8, and back 3 picks. I can't tell me whose leg I need to hump to get, a top 3, top 4 pick. I do not like having 4% Puka. Like it just feels bad. I either get the first 2 picks, or I feel like the last month and a half I've had all like 5, 7, 10, and 12. I celebrated last night on the Toxic Tower because we finally got a top 3 pick. And I was like, I haven't seen a top 3 pick on any site in so long. It's been a desert of good players. It's tough. So the exposures are, I'm barely getting any 101s and 103s, and I see people in the Discords getting loads of them. So it's a bit of variance. I'm not trying to take a ton of hard stands in the first round outside of, I didn't love Cook and Achane. They weren't my favorites. And I didn't love McCaffrey in the top 6, but I've gotten them a lot at 9 or 10. So
Levinucky needs to start running more brackets for Underdog.
You gotta get in on the hashtag Underdog Partner $100 pick'em slips, bud.
Yeah.
I'm curious with Achane and Hampton, with the recent news, with the recent kind of the bottom kind of feels very following out with Miami with a mobile quarterback. If he's not traded, and then with Hampton, with Keaton Mitchell coming into town and a scheme change, I'm curious how you're viewing those two relative to kind of like the field.
So, Achane, I mean, you look at how fantasy relevant he's been. So much of it was on check down tour, and I haven't really seen enough of Malik Willis in that area to be able to project that and to feel confident in that. It feels like in the games that we've seen, he's checked down at an okay level, but not an astonishing level. Josh Jacobs missed one of those games, and it's such a tiny sample size. Definitely we'll come back to this in a moment, but your Drake London exposure feels absolutely disgraceful.
I like how that's what you focused on.
I don't even want to talk about anything else. We'll just take Drake London, and then firstly, shout out Demo Zone. Really appreciate that. Young Will Howard getting his shot or making a splash. I mean, they have constantly talked this up, but the key thing to remember here is that Mike McCarthy is absolutely full of shit. Let's not remember when he got the Cowboys job, he talked about how he had spent the whole offseason watching every single game, how he had been to PFF and all this stuff, and he was in on analytics.
Oh, the analytics, Mike McCarthy was such a crock of shit.
it just came crumbling down so quick. So I think that they do like him a little bit, but I do not want to put any kind of real stock in it. But truly appreciate that super chat, dude. Going back to
Will Howard so much they've refused letting him start 3 years in a row. Like, can we just let the results speak for themselves? They had Justin Fields and a rotation instead of Will Howard. Will Howard is the Tanner McKee of Mac Jones.
Look, I mean, well, let's make this pick and then we'll come back to the whole kind of Achan and Hampton thing because I do think that's.
I think the Malik Willis won't check down thing is a little too precise because we've seen a more efficient passer with a good completion percentage versus a mobile quarterback. And if he's one of their main weapons that they're not training away, I have a hard time believing they're not going to kind of like force feed him the ball every way they can. Tom, it is a glorious day because you have forced this into a super diss.
Let's freaking go. It's been a while. Like, I'm not sure we've had
powerful
one of these kind of but yeah, like the Devin Achan stuff. It's like I think that offense with PFF Bobby is not something I necessarily want to count on. There's not necessarily enough evidence from Malik Willis, but I think he's so bereft of weapons that he's going to be very much looking to his playmakers, and he's done that with Green Bay. The one thing which I will say in the limited sample size is that it was clear that he knew where he needed to get the ball, and I feel confident that he can do that.
Yeah.
As for Amari and Hampton, I mean, look, the Keaton Mitchell love is strong for this very biased Ravens fan. Like, I mean, I love Keaton Mitchell. I think that Mike McDaniel is going to thrive when it comes to speed. I think he's absolutely going to love that. And I think that Todd Monken really had to be forced by John Harbaugh at times. John Harbaugh mentioned in several post-game interviews that they had to get him more involved. They mentioned after the bye week that they really, as a coaching staff, made the decision that they had to get him more involved. Mike McDaniel, I think, is going to go out there and just be like, holy shit, this guy's fast. We have to get him involved. Omari and Hampton, though, like, Hampton just did as much as he could last year, but so much of it was on poor offensive line play. I mean, like, I don't think I have a feeling of exactly what Hampton's ceiling is. I think I've got a fair idea that he can be very, very good, and I'm comfortable with this, but I don't feel like, coming off Bijan Robinson's rookie season, it was like, yeah, everything's there. He just needs the ball more. How about you?
I certainly think I wanted to see a little bit more out of him than I wanted even before the offensive line turned to dust. I'm a little skeptical about like how much of a rotation and split backfield it truly ends up being, and I'm a little worried that like he needs to get all the touchdowns all the time. We're here on the clock. JSN, Drake London, Nico Collins already in tow. Waddle and Evans, the risers. JMO, Loveland, Adams, Terry on the. What do we want to do here?
I mean, I like Waddle. I like Evans. I feel like the touch and equity is good. I mean,
let's take a little riser. I think this is about where I have him. I feel better about his target potential than JMO. Probably pretty similar touchdown equity if healthy full season. I like Loveland. I don't have enough, but he's when I have got him, it's in the 5th round. Waddle and Terry I view pretty similarly. I just feel better. I know more about the Denver offense than I do the Washington offense. Mike Evans, I have a lot of, and I like a lot. I'm hopeful maybe he's somehow available to us at 53, and we can just have the strongest stream of all time. And I think Evans with Purdy is a really nice fit. But obviously a 33-year-old with injury history is someone you're paying a premium for the spikes, not necessarily full season, workload out of. And at this point, I think RB is on the table, but we also have talked about one of the strongest ways to superpower, a 0 wide receiver build is with an elite quarterback. And, there's no bigger
4.6% off.
Yes. Well, when you can arbitrage Lamar Jackson with Jackson Dart and Justin Herbert. All right, yeah, Lamar goes, so I'm okay with Travion or Tootin here. I have the equal amount of both. Travion.
I'm fine. I'm fine with you taking your shot. I don't really have any kind of.
Which one do you prefer in a vacuum?
Well, I mean, I think that Henderson's more explosive. I think Tootin,
Yeah.
you're relying on the goal line role. Like yourself, I've got a little more DeAndre Swift than I'm kind of comfortable with. And, you're sitting at 17%. I've been taking DeAndre Swift so often lately because whenever
price.
I end up in one of those situations where it's like, this is a player I've hated on, this is a player I've talked crap about so many times. But now all of a sudden I'm looking at him and I'm just like, well, the price is right. And the Bears haven't added anyone, and everyone keeps saying this running back draft class isn't impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Yep. And the funny thing is, it's like Travion versus Tootin. It's one of those like zoom out simple things. This guy went much higher in the draft, was a better prospect coming out, and showed us a hell of a lot more in his rookie season. And yet they're very similarly priced, and the market's very funny that way. And from a talent perspective, I feel much better about Henderson's talent. And from a handcuff perspective, if Ramondre misses time, we know Henderson has 30-point game potential because of the volume. And what I liked was that, like, the New England offensive line, people realized got a little bit better than it was the year previous. It still had a lot of issues. You saw them, amplified in the Super Bowl in the playoff run, but they were able to get some really solid pieces to help the run game from an offensive line and pass blocking, run blocking perspective. They've yet to add a big threat. There's all the smoke about trading for AJ Brown, who looks like on a 2-year decline in efficiency. What if Henderson's such a clear breakout bet, and it's an easier bet for me to make in the 5th round than the 4th.
Did the Hollywood Brown 1 year, $10 million deal make you feel anything towards, okay, that's going to happen? Or was it just like, we know
the Tutu Atwell deal? Did that move the needle for me? No, Bob, I can't say it did.
Yeah. Okay. Look, we're back on the clock. I don't mind Tyler Warren here. I probably haven't drafted very much. I do quite like David Montgomery. I think he's going to be a good, efficient bet. But I'm happy for you to choose between Montgomery and Warren unless you've got anyone else.
I think we might be able to get Warren in the 7th round. For some reason, he's still been followed. So I hate this. I don't have a ton of Warren because it's been hard for me to take him over Fannin and Tucker for a long, and the quarterbacks that were all in this range for a long time. And then some of the receivers I like to take, like Parker Washington, Michael Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, who have, to me, clear upside cases to take. It's been hard for me to take him over that, even though the second they moved on for Pittman, I thought the biggest winner from Pittman is Warren for all the RPO stuff. But Dime's coming off an Achilles, and the price of paying for like the targets for one feel good. The offense feels good enough. I hate that I don't have more of him because it's just been hard for me to take him versus the other guys. If he was priced around Pitts, I'd have so much more probably. So I really hope he comes. Wow, there goes that. From a game plan perspective, what do we want to do here? And we kind of talk through all the cold stuff.
I'd be okay. Jayden Daniels falling, if he makes it to us, sort of 14 spots past ADP, would absolutely be fine. Even Drake May falling half a round feels all right for all the reasons we talked about. The best elite 0 running back teams have an elite quarterback who can give us that kind of rushing upside. Harold Fannin feels fine. Otherwise,
sure.
Cool. Yeah, Jayden Daniels, I feel like Jayden Daniels is possibly slightly underpriced this year. Very much understand the negatives with him, but it feels like the Commanders are going to be kind of in do-or-die situation enough. And if Jayden Daniels stays healthy, which is a big if, then the results are going to be so much better than they were last year.
I think we're not talking enough about how the comments we have heard from the coaching staff that I think are valuable are that Cliff Kingsbury's gone. We know Cliff in year 1 can be a big boost to the offense, but he's clearly limited in creativeness and in season-long matchup, exploiting things. His offense is so easily figured out and addressed that I know, getting Hurts and Jayden in the 7th round the last few days is, oh, here we go. No.
Yes.
And so but the amount of times we've heard with Terry and Jayden talking about do it works for them, utilize motion, utilize play action. Those are things that we know actively help boost efficiency, boost fantasy volume, and a condensed motion heavy offense with Terry that's not all horizontal bullshit, not very static. That's a good thing. And Jaylen, like, he was rough last year. We can talk about injury. We can talk about offensive line. We can talk about quality of players. I think those are all fair to say. I think it's also fair to say that he just wasn't as good as he was his rookie year. And I certainly wish they did more right now to like bring in talent. They still can. Guys like Jennings, guys like Diggs are still available. It certainly feels like they're keeping their options open. They've got money to spend. You hope they get a little bit more youthful, but like I trust that they will put in talent and utilize it a little bit better than we've seen with Cliff. And so like I agree that it feels a little too underpriced because of the bad taste.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Kick James in the chat saying that he's picked him up at the 8th, 9th turn, which is phenomenal. Like, and people are forgetting, I think, that yes, Jayden Daniels only played 6, 7 games, but he was second in quarterback rushing yards per game at 39 per game. The only person who had more than him was Justin Fields. Yes, limited sample size, maybe it would have come down if they played over 17 games across the course of the season. But you could also say, well, if they played the full 17 games, then they would have had more rushing touchdowns than they did. Like, Jayden Daniels regressed in that category, and maybe Jayden Daniels doesn't have the body to be doing that around the goal line. But I'm very much willing to take him, and I'm fine with you making an argument for any of these guys, but you know exactly where I'm going.
Let's just get players we like, Tom. In these trying times, let's bring people together. And as we wrap up early draft season, why take players we don't love? I think Rico structurally made a lot of sense there, and I think he's a solid pick at ADP. I hope we get him on the wrap. But also Kraft is awesome. We got some good news you go ahead.
Well, okay, yeah. So, I mean, you're saying let's take players we like, and this feels like a fun draft. You know, as Levinucky said, this draft fucks. But who's somebody through triple-digit drafts that you just haven't touched so far? I mean, I'm kind of 20, 30 drafts in, and I look at it and I kind of start going, why am I never drafting these people, even when they start to fall to me? Like, I don't think I've taken Josh Jacobs once, and it's Josh Jacobs was pretty good last year, but it just feels like the cliff's kind of coming for him. Garrett Wilson, I find myself really having to try to take him because it's just
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
It's just miserable. And then, like, as you kind of go further and further down, I mean, RJ Harvey, you said you haven't taken him at all. Let's make his pick, and then you can kind of throw out some.
I just expected. I mean, Rico here feels like a fantastic click.
Yes, absolutely.
Sick. Look at us getting to be. You know what? I'm going to be a glutton. I mean, you guys are just giving me. I think this is a great time to draft because people are just doing. I think what they're doing is exactly what we're talking about. They're going to go get the guys that they want, build the teams they want. I think that's great. That allows me to kind of just soak up players falling to me that I like, and also, quite frankly, force me into structures I haven't done as much. I've built a lot more early, mid running back. I've been doing a lot more eating my vegetables. I've been trying to like play the market the way it is. But as we're getting a little bit more information, but like so getting to start a draft, right now through what we have for those just joining us, JSN, Drake London, Nico Collins in the third, falling to us, fantastic. Taking Waddle around ADP, Henderson slightly behind, Montgomery at ADP, getting Daniels a full round and a half after ADP, where he's going around 63. Kraft around where he's been going for about a month, but he was going here in the 7th round for a lot of the draft. And Rico Dowdle not moving despite signing a really good contract with a team that sure doesn't have a quarterback right now. It's probably Rodgers or Kirk with Mike McCarthy, who knows him really well from Dallas. So, but yeah, I'm with you where I see the RJ Harvey thing, not taking him is I didn't like his price. I heard all the talk about getting guys back. J.K. Dobbins being back is a big hit to his volume, and he wasn't the best, most efficient running back. He was just a really good pass catcher. Now Waddle's in town.
Well, plus
falling in the 6th, I'll take him.
Yeah, and plus beat reporters straight away said they got their RB1 back. Like, all the beat reporters were very much clear. This J.K. Dobbins coming back to still be the lead back. And of course, J.K. Dobbins is always going to cede opportunities because that is a body that's been through a lot. But I mean, the RJ Harvey arguments just do not feel great. Plus, the fact is, I mean, he's the same age as Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. What do we want to do here? Quarterback or running back feel paramount from a pocket perspective. It gets pretty dire pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm okay. You know these draft boards better than myself, so I'm okay if you feel like we need a quarterback. Let's go Tyler Shough. We don't tend to do that, like, unless you want to balance it with Malik Willis. I've just seen your exposure.
I mean, I have far more Malik Willis, and I'm not going to use our precious few drafts to balance my exposures. I'll use that for the lovely R words on another stream. But Tyler Shough, talk about like an ascending offense from an efficiency perspective, fantasy viability. Yeah, and I think this is an area where this is the part of the draft where you go ADP doesn't matter. Go get the players you like, because quite frankly, it's very dire.
Well, I mean, and to Lovestar's point, like, this is the area of the draft where the winners will be decided, isn't it? It's the ambiguity zone. It's like, guys like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, if he gets 8, 9, 10 touchdowns, then he'll be a massive value. If Rachaad White catches 50 receptions this year, then he'll be a massive value. Like, it's the rookie class. Can one of these guys actually stand up and be okay? Can George Kittle come back early? Like, there are so many questions here. And I think this is almost, Justin Herzig's kind of talked about, it's like certain drafts and certain settings, like you can put things on autopilot a little bit and then just key into the right areas where you really need to go after it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would not be mad about finishing 3 solid floor and ceiling quarterbacks in this window. Other than that, we're going to have to make a decision about Washington running. I mean, Willis here, given his ceiling, even with a bad offense, the rushing value alone from a spike feels.
Yeah, I mean, I like this because it's not the way I would have built a 0 RB team as well. Like, we're sitting at a 2-3-4-1 with Tyler Shough and Jayden Daniels. And so Malik Willis wouldn't have felt like something we need to do, but I think it's worth kind of going for that. But I mean, Kiki's saying he's got 100% Willis in FFPC. Might need to sort that.
Where does Willis go in FFPC? I'm curious.
In the Superflex, let me see. I mean, yesterday I was doing one which got quite weird. Sort of 7 or 8 drafts in on that. Malik Willis, he went yesterday as QB 22 in the 6th round in the Superflex. So, I mean, to me,
I would have a ton of him at 22 as well.
Yeah. Kiki, is that where you're getting him? Are you doing more in the Superflex, or are you doing more of the single QB? Shout out to Binrels. This comment made me laugh a lot. And by the way, the role models will be drafted in for a members-only stream later on tonight. So make sure you check that out.
The toxic role models. That's funny. Yeah.
What about like anyone as we kind of get into this area of the draft who you were just not drafting, like guys like Juwan Jennings, John Mason, Kenyon Sadiq? Are you feeling like any of those just not in play?
Jennings, I'm surprised he goes at 129 because he and Diggs have been falling 20, 30 picks lately, not being on teams. Denzel Boston, not someone I'm super interested in. He's now falling with all the FUD. Jalen McMillan feels like a huge target in this range. I'm not getting him anymore because he's typically going in like the late 120s, early 130s. I feel like he's a huge winner. You see 21%. Shaheed is I don't know what to do with Shaheed.
Yeah.
Charbonnet's price continues to be awful. I'm not touching Debo unsigned, looking like dust. I refuse to take Ayuk and Hill. Cooper and Hunter are interesting and certainly guys I target, but I try to not need a running back around this range because of the direness. And this tends to be a really good range for tight end, as you see.
I just feel like Travis Kelce's a really good value. I know it's a little bit dull, but Travis Kelce, we know he's going to be out there a lot. We know that he's going to be looked upon in the red zone. We know that he's going to see.
Well, let me ask you this. If we go Kelce, are we comfortable being done with 2 tight end? I like just doing 2 tight ends in these.
I think if we do another tight end in probably the next sort of 40 picks, then yeah, if we're waiting till the kind of round 19, round 20 level, and once you start getting into like Colby Parkinson, Gunnar Helm, AJ Barner territory, like I feel a little more worrisome on it. But like if we could get somebody in the next 2 rounds at tight end, I'd probably feel quite happy.
So you want 3 tight ends, even with Tucker and Kelsey?
No. Sorry, what I'm saying. Sorry. Yes, sorry. I forgot we had Tucker. My bad. Absolutely my bad. I'm getting distracted.
I feel pretty good from a floor ceiling combo of when I'm trying to remind myself is I don't need 3 tight ends. Tight end famously doesn't matter, and the spikes are the spikes. So with a team like a 0 RB team, I'm kind of tempted to, and at 0 RB where we stopped at the first 4. So to me, I think with the quarterback firepower we got, and with the profiles of floor and ceiling for targets and big plays we have with Tucker and Kelsey, I feel pretty good saying, what if we're done with tight end and we just fill out the rest with running back and receiver?
No, I'm absolutely down with that. I think, yes, you could say early on in the season is Travis Kelce getting inefficient play whilst Tucker Kraft's recovering from injury. I don't care. Let's build for the end of the season. At the end of the season, we have a yards after catch monster, and we have someone with incredible volume and touchdown equity. So, yeah, that works completely.
Cool. So we have Omar Cooper, who's rumored to be a first-round wide receiver. We have Chris Rodriguez, a falling Tracy, Keaton Mitchell. Who do you want here?
I think, the running back room's better than me, but I'd be okay with Rodriguez or Keaton Mitchell. I'm a little bit out on Tyron Tracy.
Yep, let's go C-Rod. I think at 149, getting at minimum a handcuff and a valuable offense, potentially an early down grinder with some goal line work. Seems like a fair price. Pacheco going and Charbonnet going. It's a clear click to me.
What's your kind of thoughts in favor of Tyron Tracy? Is it just scooping against ADP, or do you feel like if Giants, who've been linked to running backs and Jeremiah Love, don't take a running back, do you think that he can make it a pretty even timeshare with Scadaboo, or is it kind of just latching onto the reception?
I think it's really just Cam Scadaboo's injury is pretty bad, really bad. The offensive line's not fantastic. The head coach and all the coaching staff's brand new. So from a clean slate standpoint, Cam Scadaboo 4th round pick, Tyrone Tracy 5th round pick. They're as talents, Cam Scadaboo's very fun, but he's also he did things well. Tracy did things well. They have a little bit of overlapping in the pass catching. So this doesn't matter if they take Love, but because we don't know if the Giants will take Love or not, the Giants could be doing huge running back smoke screens. It's kind of smelling like that right now, given what they've done. So if they don't take Love, I think the overreaction fall of Scadaboo and Tracy is too much, but Tracy is way too cheap for an ambiguous backfield if they don't take Love, given his pass catching chops, given that the coaching staff is brand new. And so we shouldn't have strong take. It is an ambiguous backfield. I'll take the cheap guy. That's really all it comes down to. And then as a handcuff.
Whoa. I mean, isn't the cheap guy Devin Singletary?
Look, I've taken some motor when I push running back too far. Don't get me wrong. We know he earns it. We can take Woody here, or we can take a receiver. This range sucks. What do you want to do?
I mean, there's still part of me that wants Calvin Ridley in my life, but I'm okay pushing him because I think he'll probably fall a bit more.
Who do you want then?
If you think we need another running back, let's go Woody. Let's just
in a 0 RB build, I'm okay just taking shots at handcuffs. Yeah. Even it's handcuffing yourself. We've seen both guys get volume over the course of a season. Shit happens.
Yeah.
Pick 60 is not killing our upside too much. We've seen that historically. This is H-N Mostert type of the price comparison stuff. I don't mind it, even if I don't love how the Houston offensive line is looking.
Just want to circle this from Kiki. Titans take Love, surely. I think Josh Norris was putting this out on Twitter today, how he was saying he was retweeting, I think it was Rich Eisen, who was saying that Rich Eisen thought that, and Daniel Jeremiah both thought that he wouldn't make it past the Titans. But Josh Norris also pointed out the fact that Adam Schefter said that the market starts at 5, and he wasn't sure if anyone before that would take. So, I mean, there's so much ambiguity there. I don't think it's worth taking a hard stance.
We literally have an insider war of he doesn't make it past the Titans, and it starts at the Giants, which means anything can happen. And so the market overreacts one way or the other in a draft.
And there's a lot of talk about it out there. Isaac Tesla coming up, Ultimate White Male, said, feels like a league winner. I don't mind Isaac Tesla.
I don't mind it.
Yeah. I'm good with it. I mean, we've kind of neglected wide receiver since we went piss heavy to start the draft.
And yet here we become balanced. 3-5-5-2. I think running back, if this is what we have for another round or two, we're not panicking. At wide receiver, we've got the strength. And now we're just taking some upside shots at touchdowns and offenses. So to update the audio listeners and folks that might have just joined, 3-5-5-2 through 15 rounds. Jaden Daniels past ADP. Tyler Shuck, Malik Willis around at our quarterback room. Chasing ceiling, really solid. I don't think any of those guys have any realistic bench risk. So from a finals perspective, feels good. Travion Henderson, David Montgomery, Rico Dowdle, Chris Rodriguez, and Woody Marks. A little bit of hand cucking, a little bit of upside, a little bit of dust. That's just called good texture, folks. JSN, Drake London, Nico Collins, Jaylen Waddle, and Isaac Tesla at receiver. Started with a nice strong piss. Doing a little bit upside hunting at touchdowns. And then Tucker Kraft, Travis Kelce, double T's, double K's, TK. You know what? You don't need anything more tight end when you've got TK knockout. Really good floor and ceiling.
Shout out Ultimate White Male gifting a Sanctuary membership. If you haven't already, or if you get that membership, jump into the Discord. Honestly, like this kind of point in the season, Rich is grinding the rookie guide so hard. Rich's results over the last few years with the rookie guide are phenomenal. Yes, he's not necessarily as quick as some of the other places out there, but Rich's sleepers, his analytical breakdowns are incredible and absolutely will help you through the next few months. Not to mention the rankings, the Bluey channel, and everything else that is in there, as well as Tyler getting upset whenever we mention Ricky. We're back on the clock here. Brian Robinson still unsigned. Kamani Vidal, the kind of running back choices. I don't mind taking a shot on one of the wide receivers. Elijah Surratt is somebody popping very heavily in Rich's rookie model. I know that for a fact. Do you want to push him or take a running back?
Let's get Surratt. I'll have 20%. I'm okay having 20% of a rookie receiver that looks like he'll have potentially top 50 real NFL draft capital. Some that looks kind of pro ready. Given that we started so heavy at receiver, I think it makes sense to focus on the rookies. B-Rob feels like a fine enough click, but if we get the RB3 potentially for the Chargers and our zero running back room, that's also not a bad thing, given he's shown he has some pretty good volume. But I think, might as well take the rookie upside shots. Almost got an upshot. You're welcome, all the folks. Also, I want to just say, if you become a member, you get the Rich's rookie guide for free. I think it's the best bang for your buck because, quite frankly, even if you're not a dynasty head, for redraft and best ball, Rich's results year over year, 3 years running, his gyms and sleepers at this time of the year have all been league winners or super smashes at ADP. The results speak for themselves. And the guys he's super hard fading, some pretty good results there too. So the only thing you have to do is remember that he's got some Jets bias and just cook.
Malachi Corley will avoid talking about that. But otherwise, in general, absolutely phenomenal and well worth it. And you can get that. Literally sign up for 1 month when the rookie guide's announced, and you can get it. But you should be with us all year. Back on the clock. I mean, Brian Robinson probably makes some sense.
Yeah, I mean, he and Vidal. I don't mind mixing it between either two. I don't really care. You tell me what you want to do.
Let's go Brian Robinson.
Okay. Yeah.
Good.
If he signs with Seattle, cool.
Kiki asking where we are on the Bears wide receivers. So obviously, both go top 55 picks, top 60 picks. Luther Burden about 10 picks ahead of Rome Odunze typically. And Luther Burden, somebody that last year we had on the channel, Dwayne McFarland, talking about how he was really worried pre-draft about him, like his analytical profile showed he could kind of go either way. And now we're talking about a guy who's consistently getting drafted in the 4th round ahead of Rome Odunze, who dealt with injuries last year. What's your kind of confidence level that Luther Burden's going to outplay Rome Odunze this year?
I'm a Luther skeptic. I think the results are a little mixed. They lean slightly pretty good with the guy of Luther Burden's profile. Adam Harstead does phenomenal writing for fantasy guys, and his work I reference a lot when it comes to like really zooming out and looking at how good a player is. It's worrisome to me that Luther Burden didn't ever exceed a 70% snap and route share. That said, I understand that part of that was missed camp with training time and in season for a playoff team. I also am cognizant of, if you look at his full season, including playoffs yards per out run, it's still very good, but it's not quite holy shit, eye-popping elite. So to me, I understand the bet is very clear to me, and I understand making that bet in Luther Burden, but I do think we're discounting the Rome Odunze drop-off a little too much, considering Caleb is streaky and inaccurate at times, especially deep. The role that Odunze plays is fantasy like gold mine, being like a primary boundary receiver. He was producing out of his mind, running really hot, fractures his foot. The offense kind of dips a little bit. I think give me the cheaper, more production in the bank type of guy a lot of the times, but you have to take shots on both guys because ultimately Burden's ceiling could easily far surpass Rome might be like a genuinely like good, never great guy, and Burden could be the next Amon-Ra Puka, even if I think the Slappies are a little too excited about the presence of that. And I'm just going to take Chris Brazzers because let's just load it up on the good clicks for rookie receivers.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I mean, Ryan Flournoy, obviously, there's plenty of opportunity there as a wide receiver 3. I always feel like Dak and the Cowboys offense is slightly undervalued in some ways anyway. But Ryan Flournoy is a floor play, not try to go with the pun there. But Brazil, I'd like to believe he could be a little bit better than that, so I'm completely fine with it. I think your point about the Bears, I want exposure to people that Ben Johnson has in his offense, but the cheaper one, the two guys who've both shown bits, I think it makes sense to be slightly more aggressive on Rome Odunze at a cheaper ADP. And in Dynasty, I mean, I play in an analyst league with some fairly big names, and one of them recently was talking about how they'd give up the 106 for Luther Burden, and immediately after I heard that on their podcast, I sent Luther Burden for their 1st-round pick, and they fucking knocked it back straight away. Like,
Tom, do we want 2 more receivers, or do we want 1 receiver, 1 running back to end up with a 3-7-8-2?
I think given our running back room, I'd probably go 3-7-8-2. So okay. I'm kind of quite fluid with this one here, but I'm fine taking Hollywood Brown because he's probably going to rise up a little bit here because people seem to be very much buying, excusing the Ricky element of it, but it seems more and more likely like AJ Brown is moving out of town. And if that happens, then you've got Hollywood Brown and Devonta Smith as your wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. You can talk plenty about how that's not really an ideal wide receiver room. You've got 2 guys whose talents kind of cross over a little bit, and you've got 2 guys whose body types. I mean, that probably would be the lightest wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in the NFL.
Yeah, to me, it's they always end up having like a viable, deep and intermediate threat type of wide receiver 3, whether it's Quez Watkins or Jahan Dotson or whatever. They'll catch the occasional touchdown. If AJ Brown's traded away, I'm a very heavy skeptic that the Eagles, who love to reload at every position, just decide that at one of the 3 premium positions they're going to just sit on their hands and be cool with 33-year-old Dallas Goedert, Slim Reaper, Devontae Smith, and oft chased, never often delivering Hollywood Brown. So whether that's trading for another guy, bringing in a Jennings or a Diggs, or drafting someone in the top 50 or trading for someone we're not even thinking about. Hollywood's a very fine wide receiver 3 on a potential top 5, top 10 offense, but I have, it won't surprise me if, we're just looking at, we're just chasing for 1 or 2 viable spike weeks. Shit happens. It'd be very funny if he just ends up becoming like the Devontae Smith handcuff. And if Smith misses time, then he just steps in that role. We'll see.
So I've got their combined weight at 350 pounds. Sorry.
So one offensive lineman.
Literally exactly the same weight as Evan Neal. Hollywood Brown and Devonta Smith.
Jalen Hurts can squat 2 of those.
I'd let him.
That's very funny. Who do we want to take here as our final running back? We have Daniels, Shuck, and Willis. So Washington, New Orleans, Miami, correlations, if that means anything to us. None of these guys handcuck anyone we have on the team so far. None of these guys stand out. I think Blues maybe I hate that the Gucci cleats are still here, but he doesn't feel like the worst click in the world that I don't have enough of. Neil with ETN in town, but also Kamara's still there. I don't know.
Let's go Neil, because I feel like if Kamara retires tomorrow or is traded, I think it's more likely he retires. Devin Neal is probably getting a 3-round bump.
Probably, because Kendre Miller returning off of ACL probably starts the year on PUP. May not be ready for week 1.
We've done the whole Kendre Miller thing too many times as well.
Yeah. Kellen Moore likes him, but he's still not healthy.
Yeah. Load and Shake asking, will Best Ball be coming back to the UK? I'm drafting on FFPC, and I'm also drafting with Best Ball Europe. If you aren't familiar with Best Ball Europe, Steve is doing a lot of good stuff over there. I think I'm 13, 14 drafts deep on his pre-draft tournament. There's various tournaments they've got lined up for the next few months. I did like that, and I'll absolutely make sure that you find FFPC. Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. They've launched a new redraft tournament this year, which I'll be quite heavy in. Certainly back to this, Tyler. For the audio listeners, because we are back on all podcast formats, would you recap this beautiful team?
Gladly, Timothy. So we finish up with Jaden Daniels, Tyler Shuck, Malik Willis at quarterback, Travion Henderson, David Montgomery, Rico Dowdle, Chris Rodriguez, Woody Marks, Brian Robinson, and Devin Neal for our slight 0 RB build. JSN, Drake London, Nico Collins, Jaylen Waddle, Isaac Tesla, Elijah Surratt, favorite of Rich in the rookie guide, Chris Brazzers, great pun, potentially sneaky top of the second round. Buzz mock draft right now with an interesting profile. Hollywood Brown, because why not? And then Tucker Kraft and Travis Kelce to round it out. I'm really happy that this came out a very different structure. I've been wanting to do less heavy tight end builds as we finish out to give more darts at running back and wide receiver to have the 3 quarterbacks that, it's the meta right now. We don't know the bye weeks. We know injuries are going to happen, and we know lulls happen. And for the playoff weeks, having 3 different quarterbacks that can spike to get you to the finals, to then have, different types of avenues to get there, can't be mad. Some pretty solid value at ADP where, it's definitely fake. It's definitely fake right now, but I think this allowed us to build a very different type of team than a bunch of other teams drafted in this contest so far. So that feels pretty good.
Could you pull up the draft board? I mean, for me, the hinge point in this kind of draft was probably where we loaded up on quarterbacks, that kind of double tap of Tyler Shuck and Malik Willis. Like, if we pushed, say, Malik Willis or even Tyler Shuck at that point and said that Jaden Daniels was just going to do elite stuff for us, is there anyone in that range that you wish we'd got that we didn't end up with?
Kenny Gainwell feels like a pretty solid,
drafted too much Kenny Gainwell,
and I've drafted too much, but like a guy like that with that level, like he scored over 30 normal half or standard points, let alone PPR points last year. That's not nothing. He got a much bigger deal than I thought he'd get. and he's going to an offensive coach who's utilized running backs in the pass game plenty. Bucky is an unknown, with mixed results. So Kenny Gainwell at running back, given we were taking darts at running back. Jonah Coleman, the question mark at rookie running back. Again, with this team, my co-host PPR Tyler tells me he's fat and can't run, but NFL mock draft database tells me, and Rich and all the other people are telling me he could be RB2 if he goes somewhere where there's opportunity. Doesn't matter. Bill or Rashad White as potential dart throws that stack with Jaden Daniels were interesting. I was hoping guys like Jennings and Diggs would fall back to us. They've been falling quite a bit. Casey Concepcion with the knee scope also been falling. All those guys go early. Those are like the only guys I feel like, I might have missed out on. McMillan, another shot where I would have loved to take him at 125. But at the same time, though, like the floor and ceiling that Shuck and Willis provide us, and as you see in this draft board, quarterback gets ugly very quick after that round. Like Stroud, Ward, Mendoza, you don't know when they're going to go. We don't, Bryce Young. I think the ceiling of our guys versus those guys with the floors they have, it's astronomically different than just 1 or 2 rounds.
But that's very much what I'm kind of feeling in these early drafts. It's like if you bypass Tyler Shuck and decide to push it because you missed out on the likes of Baker Mayfield, then all of a sudden it becomes Bryce Young, Cam Ward, Fernando Mendoza as meaningful starters on your team. And at the minute, I'm not sure I'm quite willing to risk that more often than not. There are players who are fun in this range, but it's really tricky. So yeah, I'm very much there with you. Like I think there's still fun wide receivers in this area, guys like Calvin Ridley, Kayshon Boutte, A.D. Mitchell, even Jerry Jeudy. I think that there's potential there, but it's not enough to dissuade me from the quarterback room. Going back to the rookies, we will have a new rookie mock draft on the channel tomorrow from Rich, joined by Dynasty Hot Seat himself, Mags, somebody we've got a lot of respect for, does a lot of great work. Tyler, I know you're going to be streaming a members-only draft over on the Toxic Tower later this evening. What level of draft are you going in for tonight?
You know what? We'll see. That typically comes down to the whims of Eric. I think tonight what we want to do is highlight some members' reviewed teams and then take a look back and roster bait at what we've drafted or laugh at ourselves for drafting absolute dog shit. Tune in and find out.
Excellent. And if we can start filling these FFPC $35 a little bit faster, then I'll start streaming some of those for our members only.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, hit the join button down below, as me and Tyler both said. Look, it's like the price of them. Happy Meal or something a month. It's absolutely going to be worth your time. Truly appreciate everyone hanging out tonight. This team absolutely slapped. We will be back next Thursday. Catch you all soon.